I've heard nothing but great things about David Fizdale.
For sure.
Coach, person, universally loved, was in the front office for a little bit, came back to the bench.
Take that for data.
Take that for data, obviously. I don't want him as the Phoenix Suns head coach. Love when things drop in the middle of the show. Haven't had a chance to listen ourselves, but I put Gerald to the task. Here's what he had to say. Said, Chris Haynes talked about Bud's poor communication, citing 3 incidents that were not well received. A meeting with Beal where Bud told him he needed to be the team's Drew Holiday. A meeting with Nurk where he called him a bad teammate, and Nurk saw it as mad disrespect for his screen setting abilities. And one he had reported in the past where he asked Book to tone it down in timeouts and huddles to allow the coaches' voices to be heard. Haynes also mentioned Ryan Dunn not receiving minutes as something that left the organization confused, especially with their defensive struggles. Haynes also put out a list of potential names the Suns are looking into, but before we get to those, how do those 4 reasons make you feel?
I think we've lamented the latter 3. The first one with Beal, I know we talked about them having a meeting about his role shift. I don't think we heard maybe that's a separate meeting or if it's the same meeting. We did not know about the
Drew
we need
Holiday.
you to be Drew Holiday part.
How do you feel about
which
that?
speaks as loudly to the things that we've been speaking to on this very podcast all season long. Why are you trying to make Bradley Beal a player that can defend but has never been the point of attack defender for a team, be that role for this team, especially when you just drafted someone that's been lauded for the defensive instincts that he has and the potential he has to be that? Why are they in those type of roles? That leads to the inconsistencies. You're overbearing Bradley Beal with the role, and then Ryan Dunn's just literally not playing, but expecting the team to be at a certain level. Those things don't add up. 1 + 1 is not equaling 2 in that equation.
Yeah, man. You can go up to Draymond Green and tell him I need you to be Steph Curry tonight.
And then you get the layup.
That ain't
missed.
happening.
You get the layup missed in crunch time against the Clippers last night.
Crazy.
Come on, man.
I'm glad the organization was confused about Ryan Dunn.
Yeah.
I think the Nurk stuff is interesting. Nurk saw being called a bad teammate as being mad disrespect for his screen setting abilities.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll leave it at that on that one.
Yeah. And here are the names that he put out there. Now, some we've talked about and some that we haven't. Candidates for the Phoenix Suns to replace Mike Budenholzer with. Mike Brown, Willie Green, Chris Quinn, Johnny Bryant, who is somebody that Brendan Clean also put out there, Sean Sweeney, who I think we mentioned about a month or so ago, Jared Dudley.
That's 2 Mavericks assistant coaches.
Royal Ivy.
Houston Rockets.
David.
KD. There's a KD tie there for Royal Ivy. Early days in Oklahoma City. Yep.
David Fizdale.
Interesting.
And Kevin Young.
Very, very interesting.
No way Kevin Young comes back, right? He's got such a good gig at BYU.
Yeah. That would be a wild turn of events.
If he came back, that would be nuts.
If Kevin Young's coming back, that's got to be an ultimate Devin Booker cosign.
For sure. Well, he did kind of want KY.
For sure.
Okay, so out of that list, I would pick Chris Quinn. Chris Quinn would be my pick. But since there were a couple more names added in there, Sean Sweeney, Johnny Bryant, Jared Dudley, how do you feel about those?
List the names one more time for me real
Mike
quick.
Brown.
Yep.
Willie Green.
Got you.
Chris Quinn. Johnny Bryant. Sean Sweeney. Jared Dudley. Royal Ivy. David Fizdale. Kevin Young.
It would be between Chris Quinn and Kevin Young for me. Chris Quinn, we've talked about a little bit about that already. The culture establishing, coming from a winning culture in Miami, having won as a player. Can't remember if he got a ring necessarily, but he's won at high levels with the Heat, with Dwayne Wade. And also as a coach, he has multiple rings. So that's someone that he's seen how it looks. He also understands, because of how it looks, what it doesn't look like and what it doesn't feel like. And that as much as anything is going to keep you away from getting in the situations that you're in now. Would love to see him be the person behind the wheel with the Suns and bring that energy to the Suns franchise. The other big one, obviously, with Kevin Young, offensive brilliance. I think he needs very strong and veteran type of defensive assistance around him to insulate him and allow for him to be his best self offensively. But you bring that offense back, all of the movement that Devin Booker is obviously accustomed to, has won at the highest level. Won 2 games in the finals with it. He made it to the finals with it. That's something that you can kind of help maybe duck the gap that's going to be the kind of learning process with things. You can kind of pick up where you left off in a sense And probably you see even more of him leaning into things that he wanted to do that Monty maybe necessarily didn't want. So
Yeah.
I would be intrigued by seeing Kevin Young back in the league.
I'd be intrigued by it. I just don't see it.
Yeah.
I mean, BYU's dishing out.
It's been one season.
Multi-million-dollar NIL deals. They have the number one prospect in the country in AJ DeBanza coming there. One of the better young players in Robert Wright. Yeah, they hit the Sweet 16.
Elite 8. They one of those two.
They lost to Alabama.
Two. Yeah.
Which Alabama, a great team.
Come on, that's great offense.
Yeah, I think it was Sweet 16 because then Alabama lost to Duke, and then Duke went on, and Anyway, I don't see Kevin Young coming back. They would have to offer him so much money.
Yeah, well,
and they might.
If there ever was a situation where money wouldn't be an issue.
But at the same time, like you just got to BYU,
for sure,
and you have like. I feel like an NBA opportunity can be in Kevin Young's future at any point. Royal Ivey would be interesting. I would wonder if you hire Royal Ivey, like you mentioned, he was the vet for Kevin Durant. If that's a move geared towards retaining Kevin Durant as a Phoenix Sun, Willie Green could be a book mandate. David Fizdale. How would you feel if at the end of the day, David Fizdale was the replacement for Mike Budenholzer?
It would be underwhelming for me just because of the other names that are around and that breath of fresh air that we've been speaking to that we desire to see for the Suns. But I have belief that Fizz will be able to get things out of Booker and potentially even Durant that neither of the other two coaches have been able to, just because of his relationship building and the ways in which he goes about communicating, and also his ability to have reach with players like Bol, with players like even going back to last season, Yuta Watanabe. Having that relationship, that not just with the top end of the rotation, but also the back end, and being able to bridge that gap. Also another Heat guy, a coach that's won with the Heat, a coach that's been around what it looks like to be a contending team in a consistent manner, versus also being around the Suns team the last 2 years that's severely underwhelmed. Last season was a first-round entrance, but it was a first-round exit too. And they were supposed to be in the conference finals. So he's seen what it looks like.
I've heard nothing but great things about David Fizdale.
For sure.
Coach, person, universally loved, was in the front office for a little bit, came back to the bench.
Take that for data.
Take that for data, obviously. I don't want him as the Phoenix Suns head coach. I would love him if he survived another coaching staff change. I think he's a great asset to a coaching staff.
1000%.
I would still rather have a lot of names on that list before Fizdale, and no disrespect to him, but that's just not who I personally would want. Chris Quinn, still at the top of my list. Very intrigued, hoping for some fresh and some new blood. Let's read the super chat and then get out of here unless you have anything else to add on everything. Of course, we'll be back tomorrow for a 3 o'clock show with even more Suns talk for you. Makai with a $4.99 super chat says, I feel like the coach doesn't matter if James Jones is still around, like a bad stomach ache when you're at work and can't use the bathroom.
Yeah, I don't disagree. And I don't necessarily feel like Champ should be removed from his position, but I think he should maybe just be shifted to another spot. I think they could use another basketball mind in the front office. You can never have enough basketball minds. Not to disrespect the data and analytics peeps, but we're talking about basketball. Having players that have experienced it on the front office end and as a player across multiple roles and have won in doing that, you can't put a value on that. So I think that would be valuable for the Suns.
Yeah,
have them in a different role, bring in someone new with the vision, and then hire your coach.
I feel the same way with Bartlestein. And I guess what? I wouldn't be upset if they were fully removed, if you just need that type of clarity, as long as you nailed the hire, which is kind of the same thing with this coaching hire. You cannot afford to mess this up, because if you mess this up, you're not eating another contract 1 year in. You're messing it up for a couple more years. This is the last straw. This is the final time the Suns have to pair Devin Booker in his prime with the right head coach. This will be the 8th coach in Devin Booker's 11 years in the NBA. There is no leeway. Let us know who you think is the right pick down below.